Good evening, folks. Welcome back to another Monday night live stream. Hope you're all well. I hope you had a fab weekend, and I hope your start of the week is going well so far. So what's everybody been up to? I want to know what you've been up to this last week. Have you been painting? Have you been playing games? Have you been doing a bit of retail therapy, spending them hobby dollars? Who's been doing what? So we'll start off and say a good evening to the chat. See who we've got in there tonight. We've got lots to talk about tonight. And the main gist of this evening is about my love-hate relationship with metal miniatures, and we'll come onto all that kind of stuff as we go. But let's start by saying hello to the faithful few, the ones who are always in nice and early, who start the stream off, give me loads to chat about and get started. So hello to the Super Pumpkin Man who was in 10 to 3 this afternoon. Nice to see you, buddy. Tizzy Brindrin, nice to see you as well. Cheese Me, good evening to you. Ariel Sanchez is in as well. Hello, buddy. There was a bit of chat backwards and forwards between those folks. Skullduggery's in as well. We've got Lord Novus in. Blair, good evening, mate. If you're watching this on the rerun, I hope you're feeling a bit better, mate. Type 40 TARDIS, good evening to you. Hope you're all having a better day than me. I hope it hasn't been too bad, mate. I hope whatever it is can be sorted and is better tomorrow. Coffee and Pistachios, good evening to you folks. Colin Wakeland, good evening as well, mate. Big Dave, hello. Rob Zunk, nice to see you, mate. Nice that you made the chat tonight. Andrew Cook says hello from the future. It is wet and windy, but not from eating baked beans. That sounds like you're just you're trying to cover up for something there, mate. It sounds like you've been eating baked beans. Yoakum, good evening, mate. How the devil are you? I hope you're doing well, fella. Haxan666 says good evening. Hello, fella. James Bray, how's things? You're mate. How's the little one? We've had a little bout of sickness as well. I know it's not much fun, is it? We got Cardos Dogforge in as well, saying hello. I hope everyone's doing well. Getting ready to head out for a Adepticon in the morning. I am not jealous in the slightest. Not much. I would love to go to a Adepticon, mate. I hope you have an absolutely amazing time, buddy. I want to hear all about it when you get back. Type 40 to say, when was it revealed Andy was Colossus? It has been revealed this evening, mate. My metal arms have been covered with like those kind of like what, like that material stuff that people wear makes them look like they got tattoos. They've been covered like that for years, mate. I've had metal arms the whole time. Colin Mack, good evening to you, fella. How are you doing, son? Ariel saying hello, folks. Christian Reeves, hello, buddy. Nice to see you in. Matt says good evening to one and all as well. Hello, Matt. How are you? Clyde saying he's still got the Rona. He's here for the lively chat. Oh, well, I hope you're feeling better soon, mate. I hope it passes. There's been a bit of it flying around some of our family as well. Kind of like went round the whole family, I think, but not in our house, thankfully. Touch wood. Jez is saying evening nerderinos. He says I don't mind metal minis. It's the freeform jazz ones I can't stand. I almost for the thumbnail today, rather than going with the metal arms, I almost went with the kind of like the like the metal kind of thing, but I just thought, no, we need to be off. YouTube is not good for subtle references. People would have thought it was like a metal music video, so you have to try and be a bit more in your face, I think. Wayne Haywood, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're doing well as well. Andrew Fairbanks, he said, my weekly reminder, I haven't tried to paint this month. Good afternoon, buddy. Get it done. Get it done, sunshine. Paul Leonard, good evening from Belfast. He says, good evening to you, mate. I hope you're very well. Ariel says he's having a blast painting his Zeech Demon Prince after the nightmare of building it. I can imagine that, mate, yeah. Sarah Kiss, good evening to you as well. How are you doing? We got Busian as well. It says long time. Hope everyone's good. Nice to see you, fella. I hope you're doing good as well. Mutton Chops, good evening to you as well. Let's have a look. Yeah, James is saying, yeah, sick kids is no fun, but all on the mend now. Phew. Andrew Cooks' last hobby retail therapy was 115 New Zealand dollars on latest Arcs of Omen book. Not looking forward to spend the same only a fortnight later on the next book. I don't think I'd be buying anything at the moment, mate, with 10th edition on the horizon. I think I'd be holding off and just going, this is all going to change in a few months' time. Probably not worth getting sucked into it at the moment. Tony Owl, good evening to you, mate. He's saying, "Where's that buff Andy?" I put the long sleeves on, mate, just to cover up the metallics there. Let's have a little. Genghis is saying, "I hate metal miniatures. They paint chips so easily." What are you doing with your miniatures, mate? You're not meant to sort of use them as lethal weapons. Andrew's saying, no more baked beans for me. Tomatoes trigger my irritable bowel syndrome. Yeah, you have my sympathy, mate. You have my sympathy. Good morning, Camo. Hope you're well too. VJ, good morning as well, matey. We've got Mighty Dice. Good evening to you as well. John Estel said, only a dozen rats left to paint. Looking forward to painting something that isn't a rodent. So can I assume, mate, that you're not fancying picking up Skaven or anything like that anytime soon? Greg Cherry, good evening, mate. He said he's just got a bunch of Blood and Plunder's new plastics. Nice models with better detail, but their single-piece metal has so much more character and poses. Plus, the added weight on ships is a plus. Yeah, I'll kind of come on to that as well. Like I said, like the title, it's my love-hate relationship with metal miniatures, because I'll be honest, whilst I do get frustrated with them, I do love some metal miniatures as well, and a lot of my gaming nostalgia comes from metal miniatures, so we'll get into the details of that as well. So this is not a I'm going to bash metal miniatures stream. It's a balanced opinion. I have love and I have hate. we will spread it around both sides. Let's have a little look here. Where we at? Type 42 I say, my next retail therapy will cost me about $160 on Carnivale. Innocent look. $160? Are you buying the entire range for that, mate? Metal minis are for throwing, not playing. You put them in a sock and use them as a weapon. Matt says, I need to finish off building my Predator and Rhino for Horus Heresy before I start painting anything. That's the way, mate. It's difficult to paint it until you've built it. Dave Mackay, good evening, mate. How the devil are you? I hope you're doing well. Genghis has got a 7-year-old who gets more use of my miniatures more than I do. Yeah, my little boy likes to play with the miniatures. I mean, to be fair, he's really good. He doesn't just kind of come in and pick them up and throw them around and stuff. But he wants to play with them. So yeah, we kind of have the miniatures pile that we play with together, and then we have the stuff that those are daddy's toys. Let's have a little look here. Fernando Ortega, hello there. Says, I've come to defend the honour of metal minis against those plastic upstarts. Stay back there, you future. How dare you come and bless us with your modern day plastics. James says, anyone here feeling tempted to pick up some Lord of the Rings magic cards? That one ring is pretty exciting. You're barking up the wrong tree with me, mate, when it comes to Lord of the Rings. That's really not my jam, as I've mentioned many, many times. Cheese Me says, damn it, we don't want balanced opinions. Sorry, I forgot this was the internet. Balanced opinions are not welcome. Camo says, anybody use nitrile gloves with super glue? I don't ever wear gloves with super glue, mate. I don't know whether... Is there some gloves you're not meant to use because it kind of like burns? I forget now. Where are we up to here? Type 40 says, starter gangs for 5 factions. Can I ask why you're starting with 5 factions? That seems like quite a commitment. Johnson, a horde of metal earth elementals has some real crushing strength. I tell you what, mate, I've got some earth elementals for my dwarfs, and they are quite the models to build with lots of gaps to fill, and yeah, the weight in them is unbelievable. I've never wanted to kind of put like sort of 3 of them on a base because the weight is just I always just think they're just going to keep snapping off on the feet every time. Cardos says, next year you should come to Adepticon. I'll save some mead, porter and whiskey. Oh, porter and whiskey. That might be enough to get me to go. I was close to going this year. I'd booked a hotel. I'd reserved the hotel to make sure I could get somewhere kind of close to Adepticon because I missed the initial rooms going on sale. I would have liked to have stayed at the convention centre, but I managed to get a hotel relatively close. And then when I weighed it all up, the price of the flights, the price of the hotel, everything else, I just felt that it probably wasn't the right time for me to go. And I think it was more I was in a bit of a slump at the time, to be honest. I wasn't really coming up with any good ideas. I felt like my channel was flatlining a bit, and I just thought, this is not a good time to be spending like over £1,000 on a trip to Adepticon. But I'm in a better mood now. I'm in a fresh phase of the YouTube channel, I would say, and I feel like I've kind of found my ground again. I know where I'm going. I've found my path. So yeah, next year might be a nice shout. Let's have a little look. This is all scrolling very quickly. Let me just pop back a bit here. Dave saying, I've been chasing the kitten away from the miniatures I'm working on. She likes the taste of SPQR goals. Jez says he's been building and tweaking a War Cradle MDF ruined mill, I should say. Don't usually use kits, but it's a good base to start on. You know what, mate? I've always just built them and kind of forgot about them, but I think I should I've got a load of MDF kits that I've never built, and I should probably try that one day, just as a bit of a project, just to use it as a frame to work on, because I'm not really a kit basher or a scratch builder, as most people will know. So yeah, it might be nice to do as a bit of a project one day. Somberland says I bought 3 old metal miniatures on a nerdy flea market yesterday. An old Warhammer Fantasy Mage, a Minotaur, and a Reaper Assassin. I like painting them as long as I don't have to glue them. Yeah, we'll get on to the talk of glue soon. Coffee and Bellagio saying, curious as to which miniatures get designed or to get designated to the fun with the lad pile. So the ones that kind of go to kind of the ones that we just use together are, one, they're plastic. 2, they tend to be single piece plastics. So a lot of the things we've been using are things like, let me think, what's it called? Mars Attacks. So we use the Mars Attacks aliens, the Martians, and the soldiers that come in that pack. We'll play little games with that. I use the plastic one-piece minis from the Batman Gotham City Chronicles board game. He loves playing with the Batman miniatures and stuff. So it tends to be stuff that board game style plastics, things that I'm not too worried about them getting kind of sort of thrown around a little bit, because he likes to kind of like knock them over when he kills them and stuff. But yeah, generally not stuff I've painted. Loads of things like sort of like Mantic Zombies and stuff like that, where I've had stuff or things from like Walking Dead miniatures when we've played with them, and just like that kind of stuff really. So that's the stuff that's the let's play it together and have a good laugh kind of a thing. No resin miniatures, no 3D prints, no metal ones, and nothing that's been a little bit kind of, like I wouldn't give him a Malifaux stuff to play with, for example. Dave Mackay says, no metal miniatures in it though, can't beat the weight of them, it just feels right. It's something I'll come on to later on. It took me a long time to kind of get used to plastic miniatures after having metal ones for so long. Vijay saying, who's down for a big BlackJack Legacy meetup one evening at UK Games Expo? Thinking a big dinner and maybe a night on the Terps for those who are into that. We'll see who's about, mate. I'm not really sure who's going. I know Discourse is going. We've already had a chat. So she's going to UK Games Expo. I know that Sam is going as well. Who had a bit of a chat on the Facebook group the other day. We normally meet up for a beer as well when we're there. I don't actually know who else is going really. I generally kind of just go, and it's my one time of the year where I can kind of mix business and pleasure a bit. I managed to get some content. I managed to kind of have some meetings. I tend to like kind of pre-arrange and have some meetings with different companies and things like that. This year I'm playing in the God Tier tournament, which I'm looking forward to. So yeah, it's a nice opportunity to kind of a bit of business, a bit of pleasure, kind of have a few beers and some nice food kind of thing. Cheese Me says, Earth Elementals, just use rocks with googly eyes. These ones are kind of mixtures of rocks and branches and very Gollum looking things, and they weigh an absolute ton as well. Andy Smith, hello mate, how you doing? He says metal minis, so Fast Panda can build them better than me with only one hand. I tell you what mate, he must be some kind of wizard. It's hard enough with, to be fair, it's hard enough with 3 hands, because quite often in the past I've had my missus give me a hand where I'm trying to hold something together and I'm going, right, spray that with the activator. I'm trying to hold 2 tiny little bits and you spray that while I've got it. It's hard enough with 3 hands mate, never mind one. Tizzy Brindrin says I know porter, mead and whiskey definitely would get me interested in going. I've never had mead before mate. It's something I've just never ever had the opportunity to have, so mead doesn't, like, I mean obviously it interests me, as in I would like to try it, but I've never had it to see it would be tempting. But yeah, whiskey and beer every time. Speaking of which, St. Patrick's Day was a good day out with my wife. I was still paying the price for it on Saturday. Paul M, nice to see you, Paul. How are you doing, mate? Busey saying sprinkle salt from above over metal minis to add extra flavour and depth. You got to do it like that though, haven't you? Off your elbow. Vijay says, who has the best connections for accommodation for UK Games Expo? Where should I stay? You got 2 choices, mate. You can either stay really close, which is what I would recommend, because at the end of the convention, kind of like at the end of the day, people still hang about and play games, and some of the hotels have space where you can go and play games as well, like into the middle of the night, and like that's where there's loads of bars and restaurants and kind of places to hang out and stuff. However, the hotels are very expensive. The flip side of it is you can get cheaper hotels, but the problem is you have to then kind of pay for taxis or Ubers or trains, or you've got to drive in and out kind of thing. Not drive for you so much, but for others. And I've done both ways, and for me, I find it personally, it's worth the extra expense to get a nice hotel on site and have the full convention experience than it is to have to either drive out or get taxis back later on and have to keep carrying stuff about. Sometimes you just want to kind of sort of like just chill out for 10 minutes or something, and actually being able to wander back to the hotel and drop your bag off and maybe even have a shower, freshen up before you go out in an evening or something like that. For me, the convenience is worth the extra money. Clyde says Adepticon would give you the plague anyway. I don't think so, mate. I'm sure there'd be no worse than going to a football match here, going to a convention here, going to I was drinking in Newcastle for St. Patrick's Day, was pretty busy. So yeah, I can't imagine it would have been any worse, mate. James says about 25 years ago I had a Warhammer Fantasy Battle High Elf Pegasus, and no matter what I tried, the heavy metal wings would fall off. Sometimes they would last weeks, and then in the night, thunk. Yeah, this is when kind of sort of pinning everything together. There was a few metal models I had for War Machine were a little bit like things like Jack's arms and stuff like that, because like the War Jacks had quite skinny legs and massive big kind of guns and hammers and kind of things like that for arms, and they were always kind of too heavy and they would always fall off as well. Tasty Brain says I would really love to have gone to Adepticon this year, but my wallet laughed at that. Tony says, remember having a full War Machine army in first edition metal? They were a weighty bludgeon for home invaders. I remember I had the same as well, mate, and I had one of the big battle foam bags, which was a special kind of War Machine and Hordes bag with all of the custom tray in and stuff, but the bag was probably about this wide by probably about that deep as well, about this size, probably about 5 or 6 trays in, and when it was full of the metal minis, my god, it was heavy when you were carrying it to events and stuff like that. You certainly wouldn't have wanted to be getting on public transport. It was bad enough just loading it into the car and like taking it from the car to the convention centres and stuff. Mighty Dice says, I bet you got a bad back carrying that to games. You absolutely do. Yeah, James is saying there as well, if you can stay at the NEC complex, that's worth it. More money, but then you can walk to the hotel and have a beer and go and play a blackjack with BlackJack. Yeah, I've booked my hotel to be actually like on the NEC complex, because I just, like I say, it's not cheap. It's an expensive hotel, but for me, it's the once a year. It's like my little kind of sort of treat every year, I suppose. Paul says he's cracking on with a red and crudger on winged slasher from Mantic. Can you imagine, mate? They would have been metal years ago, wouldn't they? Those crudgers. Or would we have ever even gotten a model that size? Type 40 Toy says I had full Plague Marine Nurgle Demon Army when they were all metal. Didn't use the old horrid plastics. I remember when I first started getting into Games Workshop stuff. My older lads were probably about 7 or 8, and they were wanting some models and stuff. And I remember Adam had a lot of orc stuff, which were mainly plastics. I'm trying to remember. There was the odd metal orc thing. I can't remember what it was now. But Sam was more into Chaos Space Marines, and loads of the Chaos Space Marine bits were metal like that. I forget what they called. Were they called Raptors or something like that? And they were kind of like standing, like perched on either like on a stand, where they were like stand on top of something like ready to fly or something like that. But they were always top heavy. They were awful things to mount. James says minis like that, I weight the base, feels so much nicer to push around a heavy mini. Yeah, there's definitely something like. There's something about it, isn't it? I mean, I hate it when they're top heavy and like you constantly just like they're falling over. You have to end up weighting the base even more than the weight of the top half. Like I think there was a Blood Bowl model I always remember, which was like was it like an ogre or something like that, and that was always massively top heavy. Genghis says my son is generally very good with miniatures, very rarely damages them, but metal paint jobs get damaged with the slightest drops. I don't remember my metal stuff getting chipped so much, but maybe I used to kind of seal them and stuff like that. I forget now. Such a long time since I had any real major metal stuff. James is saying I might go to UK Games Expo if I can wrangle a free trip again. Yeah, that makes a bit of a difference, mate. Busey saying I have a couple of metal minis, never painted them. They seem more fragile than plastic, although you would think they'd be stronger. The actual parts themselves, like if you drop them, and like because super glue is generally quite brittle, really. If you drop them, they will break into pieces, but the pieces themselves never break. That's the kind of the beauty of them, and that's where you end up getting green stuff in the joints and pinning them and that kind of stuff. That keeps them together pretty well. They just take a lot more working with, really. Zingbo says I'll be at UK Games Expo, and obviously I'm a pretty big deal. Well, there you go, mate. That's all the news we need. That's it. Everything else, hold the press. Zingbo is going to be there. Ariel says metal minis are the only reason why I haven't tried Infinity. I might try Warcrow whenever it comes out. I'm not sure the whole of the Warcrow range is going to be the Siocast or Seocast, but I know certainly some models are, like some of the Infinity models are now. Alex Berry, hello mate, how are you doing? He said he's been working out his painting scheme for Old Dominion for this month's painting challenge and playing with oil washers because that's what the cool kids do apparently. I've still never tried oil washing, mate. You'll have to tell me how it goes and how easy is it to do. Ed, good evening to you, mate. He said it's a bit of a busy night, but I have a few minutes to pop my head in. Nice to see you, mate. Thank you for popping in, I should say. Christian, thanks for sharing the link there to Patreon as well. If anybody would like to support me on Patreon, there is a link there in the chat that Christian has very kindly posted. Matt's saying that Ariel as well. Yeah, metal minis are pretty off-putting these days. I think, and we'll come on to this when I get on the metal stuff, but I think there's an element of where we're kind of spoiled these days now. Like when I first started, there were a lot of kind of plastic minis, but plastic was mainly kind of GW stuff. Most other companies didn't really have plastic when I first started kind of getting into minis, and that wasn't that long ago, to be fair. So yeah, I mean, over time they started to move to plastic, but things like Malifaux and War Machine, what else was I playing back then as well? I forget now, but yeah, but a lot of stuff like the bigger games that weren't Games Workshop, like Infinity, Malifaux, War Machine, Hordes, were all metal back then. Clyde saying, are Infinity metal still? Want to get into that? They are still metal, mate, predominantly metal. They started to kind of tinker with a little bit of CO cast stuff, which is like a thermoplastic type thing. And they're also tinkering with a new material, which I'll come on to later on as well. Dave Mackay says, I went to UK Games Expo last year, but hotel was too far away to do anything in the evening. Missing this year, I'm going to try and get in the hotel right next to it. Absolutely, mate. That's the key, mate. Like, I've done that in the past. Like, I've been with my older two sons, and we stayed in a hotel, which was about a 15-minute drive away, and nice hotel, quite inexpensive. But it meant sort of at the end of the day, you kind of like, do we hang around until late and then drive back late to the hotel? It means I can't have a beer, like at the end of the day after quite a long day kind of thing. Am I better off getting back to the hotel and then having a meal at the hotel and having a couple of beers kind of later on or something? I couldn't really play board games like late on because I had the kids with us and stuff. But then the first year that I stayed on site was like, all right, so this is what I've been missing kind of thing. The fact that I can just kind of like, I can nip back kind of thing. If I buy any stuff during the day, I can just nip back to the hotel and drop it off and then come back. And, or maybe I just want to get a cup of coffee and stretch my legs. I can walk back to the hotel and drop my things off and then come back and get showered and changed and then go back and meet up to play games, which is what I did with Luke Pryor last year. We went back to the centre and played games and stuff. I just like the convenience of it, but the prices of the hotels are disgraceful. It is an absolute fortune. Have you contacted Dave VJ? Have you messaged him to see if he's going? I don't know if it's really his kind of thing, to be fair, mate. But you never know. Alex says, like my Tester Honor single piece metal minis, but multi-part ones can be a nightmare. Lost many a fingerprint assembling them. Yes, I would agree with that kind of stuff. I think kind of single piece metal stuff now is very much in the realm of like smaller independent stuff or like very historical war games have a lot of single piece metal stuff as well, so you don't really hear about it quite so much now in like, I don't want to like separate them kind of, put them into kind of like compartments, but sci-fi fantasy war gaming from the mainstream companies tend not to have a lot of single piece stuff. Tasty Brain Drain saying mead is great. I'd say definitely give it a try at some point. And the only time I ever hear of anybody drinking mead is when they've made it themselves. I've never really sort of seen anywhere ever selling the stuff. Jess is saying, when I first got into minis, they were all metal with lots of tasty, healthy lead, 35 pence worth of terrible features and built-in brain melting. How things change, mate. Dave says, my Falcone crime family was 60% off because they are metal miniatures. What kind of discount negates the metal mini issue? That kind of discount, negates the metal mini issues. I think the problem is, mate, they were discounted because people generally probably weren't buying them, especially if there's a plastic or a resin version of them now. The metal ones end up getting left on the shelf, don't they? Dave's saying mead's a bit sweet for his taste. I'm guessing it's kind of honey based, is it? Is that why it's a bit sweet? Jess says, I've got a mate who has a meadery. Is meadery even a name? There you go. I've never heard of a meadery before. It would be. You get a winery, don't you? You don't get a beery. You get a brewery, which is kind of similar. Lancashire Mead Company. It's well nice stuff. I must try it at some point then. Ariel says, it's my understanding that the new Infinity Minis are CO cast, but the vast majority are still metal. I definitely try a starter set of all plastic minis. Yeah, so they've got... they've started to bring in some CO cast for some bigger models where metal's maybe a little bit prohibitive. And like I say, they've got this new material as well, which we'll talk about later. Matt says, move over to resin plastic and Infinity has some of my money. There are some awesome sculpts among their range. Interesting setting too. We'll be chatting about that in a bit, mate. Skulldoggy says, I spent too much money on other cons to go to Adepticon or other game conventions. Might have to change that in the future. So I've never been to Adepticon, so I'm kind of I'm looking at it with the idea of what I've seen online, what I kind of expect it to be. It's definitely very much miniature focused, with lots of events and like classes to take and seminars to get involved in. These are all the things that I actually feel that Salute is missing in the UK. I would love Salute to have a bit of an overhaul. I was looking the other day because I was really tempted actually to get the train down to London and go to Salute. And I think I'm just getting kind of withdrawal symptoms. I've not been to a convention in ages. And I think like UK Games Expo was probably the last one I went to last summer. So I was kind of getting that itchy kind of feet of like, oh, maybe I'll give Salute another try and give it the benefit of the doubt and see if anybody's going and maybe meet up. But then I was looking at the price of the tickets, and I was thinking, oh, there's just nothing. There's nothing there for me. Like 100 quid's worth of train tickets. I'm not going to book a hotel because then that's another £200 or something like that on top. I might as well just get the train back the same day because there's not enough at Salute like to last a full day kind of thing. So even if I get like an early train, I can get the 5-6 o'clock train back home again because Salute's over and done with by then. But then I was thinking that it's essentially like 150 quid I could have just spent on miniatures and stayed at home. So yeah, that's the problem with Salute. I wish Salute had things like painting seminars or like kind of like the GW reveals like they do at Adepticon as well. It's a shame they don't do like they do those kind of things at UK Games Expo as well. It's a shame they don't do them kind of things at Salute. It feels like Salute's very much kind of stuck in the this is how we do it, and we're not going to change. It's always going to be like this kind of thing, which is a shame. Paul says he came across an old Citadel giant from the mid-80s. It's about the size of an August these days. It's unbelievable, isn't it? I guess like the heavy metal miniatures like were one of the limiting factors. I mean, the fact that we can get models kind of like this size now because they're plastic and they're like, you know, it's not like picking up like a trophy kind of thing. The plastic and the resin stuff's allowed us really the weight reduction has allowed us to get these bigger stuff now. Can try you. Good evening to you. Hope you're well. Lord Novus is saying, what do you like about Metal Minis? We'll get to that, mate, when we get on the main topic. Hail and well met, Deep Red. Hope you're doing well, fella. Where was this up to? Colin saying, I'll be going on Saturday this year to UK Games Expo. Yeah, I'll be there for the potentially 4 days, mate. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Although the Thursday is normally like a press evening on the night time where you get to spend a little bit of time with some of the companies that show new stuff off. If you've got a press pass, which I sometimes get. I didn't last year, but I've applied for one this year. If you have a press pass, then you can access the press event on the Thursday night. It also is a nice way to pick up your tickets early as well, because there's always big queues on the Friday morning to pick up your hall passes to get into the event, because everybody's coming at the same time. Let's have a little look. Tony saying, my favourite thing about Metal Minis is the satisfying scream when you chuck one across the table. Cheese Me says the vast majority were either metal or resin. I don't really think there was any resin stuff when I was first kind of playing it. There was mostly just metal and plastic, I think, and the plastic was pretty much just the GW stuff. Yeah, and Ed saying plastic wasn't remotely a thing when I started out. Yeah, I'm much, for all I'm old, mate, I'm much newer to the hobby. Jess says the shifting from Seocast to some Chinese manufacturer, or they're shifting from Seocast to some Chinese manufacturer vinyl mix for Infinity. Apparently supposed to be all right to clean up though. Good details. That Mr. Shy has a vid about it. Yeah, it's a company is called, if I can remember. In fact, I think I've got it queued up here to talk about it later on. It is called. This is the company here. It's called Unicool, and they do this kind of injection mold stuff. They make other kind of models and toys and things like that over in China, or might be, was it China or Hong Kong? I forget now. And it's kind of like a PVC resin mix. And yeah, this was his video, Mr. Shy's video. And if I can skip to the part, this was the model that they kind of sent him out to have a look at. and it looks like it's got some nice details to it. He kind of spoke quite highly of it in the video and showed some kind of pros and cons of it. He said one of the cons, one of the downsides of the CO cast stuff is that it gets a bit furry when you try and clean it up. However, this seems to clean up much more like kind of plastic and resin a little bit more. So it'll be interesting to see it. From the letter that he got with it, basically, they were essentially saying that it's something they're going to try out on a couple of models this year. It's not going to be like in mass production or anything like that, but that they're constantly looking at other manufacturing processes, I suppose. Dave says, I still remember the Warhammer shop in Leicester having an old style metal centrifuge machine for making minis. It was a while ago though, yeah. I mean, to be honest, mate, that's still how anybody that makes metal minis, that's still how they make them now. If you go for a tour around like Warlord, if you go for a tour around Mantic, I mean, Mantic are predominantly resin now, but the resin, how you make resin models and how you make metal models is not that dissimilar, really. It works from the mold and a centrifuge, basically spinning them and basically pouring the material into the center and spreading out across the mold. Paul says, can't beat the old metal dreadnought in a sock. Applied lovely to the temple of an intransigent opponent. Better than the old GW Whippy sticks. I remember my son having, he might have got like in a eBay purchase type thing, was a metal dreadnought, and they were terrible for keeping together as well. Camo saying plastic Airfix, classic plastic. Yeah, I'd never really built a lot of kind of Airfix models and stuff when I was a kid. Fernando says metal minis have been the only way for small indie brands to enter the market. The new generation may move to 3D printing, yet sticking with plastic only mentality leaves you with few options. I think it's something we'll come on to later on, but essentially I think resin has kind of replaced metal for a lot of sort of indie companies just starting up now, because metal's getting expensive, I think, which is one of the big draws. It's expensive to ship around. It's expensive to physically buy now. I think resin's a little bit cheaper, although resin is getting expensive. And every company, I guess, really wants to kind of grow to the point where mass production and the amount of models they sell means they can mass produce in plastic, because the costs are just drastically like less. But the setup to start producing is very expensive. Like the investment in the initial die is very expensive, but then the cost per unit after that sort of really brings it down. But you need to be doing sort of tens of thousands of models, or you need to be, in terms of companies like Corvus Belli, for example, not Corvus Belli, sorry, Parabellum, for example. They used to, when they were a bit smaller, they made a plan of like, we're going to have 18 months worth of plastics. Like we're going to make a production run in plastic, but this stock will probably last us 18 months. And that was how they kind of got up and running with all plastics from the start. These days, they obviously sell a lot more models, and those production runs that might have lasted them 18 months might only last them 2 or 3 months now. But yeah, in the past, that was how they did it. Or why they did it, I should say. And even they still use resin for the odd kind of hero model that they're not going to sell a lot of. But the main troops, yeah, all plastic. Somblin says, in the 90s they were only metal for me. I had many Ralpatha battle mechs, many hobby product minis from the Dark Eye RPG and Demon World 15mm game, but also some Mithril minis for Lord of the Rings. Wow. Loads of stuff I've never heard of, mate. Clyde says, fond memories of the first edition Malifaux stuff. Loved them so much. Got a killer case full. Surprised they've not fallen through the floor. I've still got a lot of metal Malifaux minis from my first edition as well. All my painted ones. And yeah, it's funny. I don't remember kind of spitting feathers and getting annoyed at them back then. But then I hadn't really been spoiled by a volume of like sort of plastics and stuff at that point. Paul says Lindisfarne mead is okay. You used to be able to get it from Phoenix Deli. Oh, posh mate, shopping in Phoenix Deli. Best range of mead I've found is in the House of the Trembling Madness, off license in York. It's been ages since I've been to York. I used to go to York quite a bit when I worked for Scottish and Newcastle breweries, and my office, because I worked in the technical services department, my office was at Tadcaster at the John Smith's brewery. And I quite often used to stay in York. If I was going down to Tadcaster, I'd stay overnight in York. So I used to spend quite a bit of time down there, but I can't remember the last time I've been to York. Cheese me saying mead is honey based. Petzler the polychromatic says, just got here. Did we already get the part about why metal minis punch your heart? No, I haven't really gotten the main topic, mate. I'm still just kind of rambling around, and we're getting there. We've kind of skirted around it a bit, but we'll get to it. VJ says he's just booked the Ibis on site, almost $1,000 Australian dollars for 3 nights. I can't think where the Ibis is, mate. I'm trying to think now, but yeah, I don't know how much that is in British pounds, mate, but it sounds a lot. Thanks, Christian, sharing the link there for BlackJack Legacy t-shirts and hoodies. If you'd like to get any merch and support the channel, much appreciated. Jess says Salute has some panels on. They announced it today. Do they now? I've not seen that, mate. I'll have to have a look. It seems a bit weird that they're announcing it now in March when it's on in April. Isn't it like 3 weeks away or something like that? Kentryu says, remember my first plastic minis being Imperial Space Marines. Think either 80s or early 90s. Beaky Marines, all very posable, 30 in a box. Whole army in one go. Posable. Honestly, I can feel chills going up my spine when you say posable minis. I'd much rather they were just like built one way. I know I might be in the minority there, but give me a single pose mini any day of the week. Where are we up to here? VG saying still probably the only time I'll ever go, so I guess it's worth it. There is that, mate, as well, yeah. Ed saying didn't Salute ban GW and their games for more than a decade. I'm not sure, mate. When I went, and this was going some time ago now, there was definitely GW never really went and displayed anything, but there was a GW stand, or was it a Forge World one? It might have been a Forge World stand, but then I guess if GW's banned, Forge World must have been sort of part of that. I've got no idea about them being banned though, mate. Tizzy Brain Drain saying if I went to Adepticon, I'd take a few extra days just to sightsee in Chicago because I've always wanted to go there. Yeah, that's part of it, mate. I wouldn't want to kind of fly all that way to Chicago. What is it for me? Like it's like an 8-hour flight, something like that. I wouldn't want to go all that way and then not see anything except the inside of a hotel, convention centre kind of thing. I'd want to make a bit of a trip of it as well. Vijay said now to figure out how to get from Strasbourg on Friday morning to Birmingham. Thinking train to Paris and then flight to Birmingham. I tell you what, mate, rather you than me. Yeah, Chicago's cool. Really enjoyed my few days there when I went to the US. Yeah, it's my wife's been there as well with work before, and she always says it's one of her favourite places. So I think one day I would love to go back. Lazy Mini Painting, hello, mate. He says the good old days of 2 Death Company models in a blister pack, 5 packs for a squad. I've still got some old GW blister packs I took away in a box. When the first army I ever painted was a Raven Guard army, and I've still got the what's it called again? Like the metal like kind of like leader model for the Raven Guard. Is Conrad Kurz, or am I imagining that? Or is that somebody else? There's a plastic version of him now with the kind of emo fringe coming down, but the one I had the beaky helmet on. Pezler, the Polychromatic says, despite getting it at 40k back in 8th edition, I enjoy picking up classic metal minis, although the metal dreadnought is chunky enough it could be one day Exhibit A of a murder trial. I mean, compared to the new plastic ones now, though, they're so small in scale. Like, they're so undersized now in comparison. Zingbo says, I started miniature gaming in 89. GW had plastic kits for bulking out a few troop type units back then, but all the nice models and most models in general were lead. I didn't. It was into the 90s. It was into the 2000s when I started buying models and stuff. If you think like Malifaux had just come out, when I kind of got into miniature gaming, I'd probably been collecting and painting for about a year prior to that, but it gives you an idea. So I kind of had my first game of 40k probably about 2 weeks before Malifaux launched. When Malifaux first edition first come out, because I didn't enjoy it. I ended up selling my miniatures and then buying Malifaux stuff with the money that I'd made from selling all my Space Marines. So yeah, that's how I remember. Jez says spin casting machines are great, absolutely terrifying if your mould isn't fixed in properly. It reminds me, when I used to work, the place I served my apprenticeship made printed circuit boards, and if you know, printed circuit boards have got that like green colour on them, like on the outside of it, and it's like a protective coat basically over the thing, and it's a chemical or a covering called Probimer, and we used to get them in these big kind of massive big paint cans, metal paint can type things, and they would go like in a paint shaker, like what you would see in kind of B&Q or what's it called, Home Depot or something like that. You know, when you're getting your own coloured paints mixed. And they used to go inside them, and obviously they rotate and like shake up the paint type stuff, this Probimer stuff inside. And if your lid wasn't on properly or somebody hadn't put it inside, and it started banging around inside there, because it would kind of wind down and clamp, but if it wasn't on level, it would clamp and stop, and then at some point it would slip, and then this thing would start banging around inside, and then it would burst, and this green ink stuff would go everywhere. I still have nightmares thinking about sort of having to go down and fix those machines, because I worked in maintenance, so the guys that would put these tins inside the machines would mess the thing up, and then we'd get the call to come and fix the machine, and it was just covered in this green stuff. It was awful to get off. It used to go like almost like a tar. You know, when people kind of tar like felt roofs, when it started to harden, it went a bit like a tar. It was awful. Let's have a little look. James says, how is a plastic mould more expensive than a metal one? So it's more expensive because a metal models are made in silicon moulds, where plastic models are high pressure injected plastic at high temperature, so they're made in steel moulds. So the steel moulds all have to be kind of like sort of basically like drilled out basically with a fancy machine that can get really, really small details. They're all like drilled out of a big block of metal, where metal models are basically in a silicon cast mold, which is much cheaper and kind of almost disposable. Like they wear out after a while and then they just replace them. But the big metal ones, they've got to make sure they don't get damaged. They're about 10 grand each, I think, where they're probably kind of a few quid in comparison with the silicon ones. See when you get back, VJ. Super Pumpkin Man says, unfortunately, I've never really had much of a problem with metal minis outside of storage due to weight needing a buffer, so not to damage plastic and resin minis. Yeah, you definitely don't want them all in the same box banging around, that's for sure. Yeah, and Jez is saying there, you can produce your own moulds for metal or resin. The plastic ones have to be CNC'd out of steel. CNC, that was a word I couldn't remember. T-Bread says, happy memories playing with metal 15mm laser burn minis before 40k was a thing. Before 40k was a thing? You're telling me 40k hasn't been here forever? Hexen says, I still have metal Witch Elf Warband that was painted years ago when I first started painting. They were one piece, not the frustrating puzzle nonsense. I mean, I think you still get the same frustrating puzzle stuff with plastics as well and resin as well as metal kind of thing. But yeah, there's something. The problem with single piece metal miniatures is they are very, very one-dimensional. They're very flat, like. Because the thing that gives it something a bit of a 3D element to it is the fact that you're sticking arms, legs, weapons, shoulder pads, backpacks onto a very, very flat model. Because of the way kind of spin casting works, it has to be kind of very, very flat. That's why you get lots of soldiers kind of like sort of arm up here kind of thing and arm out there pointing a gun, like in a very flat sort of pose. Yeah, VG is saying that's like 500 quid. Yeah, I think that's roughly kind of what I've paid as well, mate. But mine might have been for 2 nights though. Type 40 Taurus says, I started with minis when the old metal Beaky Marine was still using the Elder Guardian. Shuriken cannon. Colin saying, I think ChillCon is in Sheffield. Is on in Sheffield soon. Yeah, I've never been to ChillCon one, mate. The problem with ChillCon, and no disrespect to those guys either, but it's like a lot of local conventions. They're essentially like a car boot sale type thing, just loads of tables to walk around. And the problem is, unless there's something like, if it's a local one, I'm more than happy to kind of go and support it and show some support for it. But it's not the kind of thing where I want to pay a fortune to travel and maybe even hotels overnight just to kind of walk around and see the same models I see online every day. Kyvan Shrike, that's the one. Thank you very much, mate. I couldn't remember his name. I've still got the metal version of that in a blister pack. Tasty Brain Drain says, I mentioned before I bought a Ralpatha Battletech Mini when I was in high school back in the 90s. I still have it and it sits on my desk in the office. You should definitely bring it home, mate. Yeah. Conrad is Night Lords. You know what? I think I was thinking that the Conrad Kurz bit was the CC, because I think I was thinking of Corvus Cabal for Warcry, which is very much the kind of Crow people, and that's what I was kind of thinking of. But it is Kyvan Shrike. That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, shaky paint horror. God, I still have nightmares about it, mate, honestly. Gotta go set up painting, says Lazy Mini Painting. Enjoyed the stream. Thank you very much, mate. Super Pokemon says, I work with a pewter spin casting machine and I'm proud to say I never got a Russian bikini wax. Well done. John says, I've just had my Metal Lord fall off his base and I went to fill in the gaps with green stuff. Nostalgia. It'll kick you right in the fields every time. You're not wrong, mate. Pewter and zinc casting is done in a vulcanized rubber mold. That's what I mean, mate. Not silicon, like vulcanized rubber. But it's a rubber mold, not metal. Is the point I was making. Nostalgia isn't what it used to be. Christian sharing the link there as well. If anybody is shopping on Amazon anytime soon, please feel free to shop through my link. If you click on the link that Christian is showing, it will just take you to the normal Amazon page. You will pay all the same prices that you always pay. You get all the same shipping you always get. However, I get a small commission for having sent you there, and it's a nice little way to support the channel without it costing you a penny extra. Clytian, Grenadier and Ralpatha, tasty lead. Well before my time, mate, I think. Cheese Me saying, I still have original first edition Rogue Trader and 40k book. It had paper cutouts and Space Marines and Orcs. Wow. Fernando saying, we are spoiled, we should play with wooden meeples. There is an element of that, mate, isn't there? Ed said, I do sometimes miss laser burn. It's funny how much of it crops up in 40k. I've never even heard of it, mate. Coffee and Pistachio says, metal molds for plastic minis need regular polishing, making sure they're spotless without imperfections. Lots of man hours for the larger companies. Yeah, it's also like if any damage and they're pretty much screwed as well, that's the problem. So then they have to be I think you can kind of repair them sometimes, but generally if they get too damaged, if they get dropped or something like that, it's kind of game over and they have to cut a new mold. Where if you're doing it with resin or metal minis, it's a bit different. So we might as well have a bit of a chat then about the metal minis and stuff. So yeah, as the title says, kind of thing, I have a love-hate relationship with minis. Now from a love side, let's start with the positives. I love metal minis because it's kind of, we've been joking about it there, but there is the nostalgia of it. Like I say, the first metal minis I ever really had were Malifaux miniatures. I had the odd kind of metal mini for Warhammer 40k when like my little boys were collecting stuff. I don't remember, because I had like a Space Marine army. The vast majority of like Space Marine stuff, it was the high volume stuff. It was all plastic. So I never really kind of experienced metal minis on any massive kind of sort of like for all of my army kind of thing until I picked up the Malifaux stuff. But I don't remember having too much problem with them. I remember obviously having to use super glue rather than plastic glue, having to pin maybe some of the arms and things that were a little bit fiddly. So that was when I got good at kind of sort of really tiny little hobby pin vices, and putting in paper clips into the arm joints and things to hold them, maybe putting them through the bottoms of the feet, like up through the heel into the leg, to make sure that they kind of stuck to the base and stuff. But I think because it was a skirmish game and there wasn't a lot of models I was kind of building and painting and stuff, I never really kind of I never remember it being like a bad experience. Like I don't look back on it with thinking, oh, like I hated building them kind of thing. And then after I played Malifaux for a while, I was on a War Machine and Hordes, and I remember building, like I had a Trollbloods force. I remember War Machine had like plastic starter boxes. So if you bought like a Kado or a Crick starter box type thing, normally like the kind of the Warcaster or the Warlord model and the jacks and stuff like that tended to be plastic. But then as soon as you went out and bought anything else, it was pretty much all metal. And plastic stuff and some resin stuff did start to come in later on in its kind of time. But I remember building my Trollbloods and stuff, and they were all metal at the time, and building things like some of the big trolls, the big beasts, like really overbalanced. There was a one, and I forget what it was called, but it was like throwing big like sort of barrels, which were like had like they were like bombs with the fuse out of them stuff. And the way it was kind of posed, it was really off balance. Like it was on a tiny base for the size, like the span of the arms and the shoulders, and it was always falling over. So I look back on them though with fondness. I don't remember having like a frustration with them. I just got used to kind of getting like green stuff or getting milliput and filling in the gaps in the joins between them, which would then kind of give it a little bit more strength and stuff. So yeah, I don't remember having that kind of love-hate relationship back then. But then I guess over the years I played other stuff, so other games, things like Malifaux went to plastics. Obviously a lot of GW stuff, things like Kill Team and AOS. Most GW stuff, especially around the time of Finecast, the metal stuff all disappeared, and whilst the Finecast wasn't great, eventually it kind of got itself sorted out and things, but I still preferred building resin stuff to kind of messing about with metal models at that point. You still have to use super glue, but they clean up much easier, just kind of easier to work with. But there is a nostalgia to like the weight of a metal model, especially when it's like a single unit model. I'm just looking for something like comparative size wise. These are some croup models for Kill Team. Like when you've got something of that kind of size, like I quite like having the weight of a metal model in something like that. If it's something like sort of big and chunky like this, this is a God Tier mini I'm painting, one of the champions, something a bit bigger in that kind of scale, then they start to get a little bit kind of like, oh, these are getting quite heavy now, and you get a few of them in the bag, as we were talking about before. They start to like wear you down a little bit. So I still have a lot of love for metal miniatures, like things like the natural way people have been sculpting with green stuff, and then obviously casting them and as their masters and getting the metal minis mass produced. A lot of kind of like that old style hand sculpting stuff. Kind of got lost a little bit when they started to go to mass produce and kind of CAD drawn or computer aided design drawn sculptures and stuff like that. So we lost a little bit of character. You do get some companies a little bit like Warplock Miniatures or like Goblin King Games who keep that kind of old school kind of style alive, shall we say, whilst sort of still sculpting in CAD and stuff. But over time, I've basically just been blessed with most companies making things in plastic, be it board game pieces in PVC, be it mass-produced GW stuff, which is frankly is still fantastic quality, regardless of whether you kind of like the aesthetics or not. You've got Wild West Exodus from War Cradle, all of their plastics or resin, but a lot of the new stuff's plastic. You've got things like Dystopian Wars from War Cradle as well, all plastic ships with a few of the bigger ones being made out of resin. So whenever I come back now to metal stuff, it always feels like metal stuff now. They're not as easy to clean up. You're filing things away, or you're trying to like sort of pick away at them with a knife and trying to kind of like shave them down and stuff. So I always kind of get a bit frustrated with them. However, we then come on to Corvus Belli and Infinity, Now, I've said many times I absolutely love the Corvus Belli, the Infinity Universe. I love the kind of the background, the lore, the artwork, the style. I even love the miniatures. Like, I think that their metal miniatures that Corvus Belli produce are probably up there among the best in terms of the quality of the sculpt of metal miniatures. However, as I've mentioned many times as well, I've always had this kind of fight with trying to get the things to stick. And last year, Corvus Belli sent me out this box set, this Operation Black Wind. And I started to build it up. I reviewed the one before this one, which was Operation Coalstorm. I fought with the minis the last time, and I got this one out. I sat down, I was trying to build them, and I just, as I've always suffered with, I just could not get them to stick together. I was having nothing but nightmares, and essentially I just got frustrated. I'd built about 5 or 6 of the models. There's quite a few models in the box, actually, if I remember. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 models plus a bonus one, so 15 models in that set. I think I built about 4 or 5 of them, and it was just an act in frustration. So they kind of went back in the box. It went in the shelf. I never talked about it on the channel. I never got to review it because I never kind of built the minis up. I never got to paint them or anything like that. And it frustrated me that not only could I not get them to stick together properly, it didn't matter what glue I tried. The fact that I really liked the product. I liked the miniatures. I liked the setting. I liked the background. I even liked the game. But it just frustrated me that it was such a barrier to kind of getting into playing Infinity because the models were such a frustration. Now, I don't think this is Corvus Belli's fault. This is just for whatever reason, whatever glues I tried. And I've basically I normally use this stuff. This is Gorilla Gel Glue. This basically is, I find this stuff works for 99% of stuff. It just works really well. I've never had any problem with it. I've tried all sorts of different kind of glues and things. Anyway, this week, or this last week I should say, Corvus Belli got back in touch with me and sent me out this new Bakunin, what is it called again? I can't read it in the back. Bakunin Observerance Action Pack, which is their new action pack for the Nomads. And I thought, you know what it is? I'm going to have to kind of like sort of get over this problem with the metal minis. I'm going to have to try and sort of get some stuff together. So what I've actually found something that worked. I tried this Gorilla this gel stuff, still couldn't get it to work. Decided to buy some activator spray to try and sort of improve it. And I bought this Mitre Fast activator spray. And you basically get in a pack. You get the activator spray and you get the bottle of glue with it. And I mean, this bottle of glue is a 50-gram bottle, and you get it with the activator spray. And I think it cost me like £7. It might have been £6 or £7. This Gorilla Gel Glue is 15 grams, and I think this was about £6 or £7 on its own. And a lot of other sort of super glue things are like tiny, like 3 or 4 grams in them and stuff like that. But for some reason, this seems to stick the Infinity models way better than the other stuff. The other, like the gel stuff and the other stuff I've been using. From an ingredients point of view, like the chemicals that it says it's got in, it seems to have the same kind of stuff in. It says that it basically sets in about 10 seconds. This stuff speeds it up and it sets instantly. But what I would say, like says it's like basically designed for gluing mitre joints together on wood to basically kind of like to speed up the process. But it does say on here that it's mainly used in the furniture industry, where instant bonding properties dramatically reduce assembly times for mitre joints when compared to conventional wood adhesives. The product's also suitable for instant bonding of MDF, rubber, UPVC, metals, and most plastics, as well as finding uses in the electronics industry, where rapid assembly of components is essential. But yeah, so I kind of tried this, and it was like a miracle. It was like a light bulb moment kind of thing. So I've not done anything with these this new box set yet. I've literally what I did was I went back and I finished building all of the stuff in this box weighs a ton, by the way. I went back and I finished building all the stuff in this, and they went together no problems. So maybe it's time to kind of give Metal Miniatures a bit of a second wind, give them a second chance, because I've been so frustrated with them in the past that it just puts me off looking at Metal Miniatures. There are some beautiful miniatures out there, but as soon as they're metal, it instantly turns me off. And I know there's a lot of people in the chat and especially in the Facebook group and stuff as well, who've just said basically, as soon as I see it's Metal Miniatures, it's just an instant turn off. I like, it's not for me. I'm not even interested in it. And I'll be perfectly honest, I've been in that camp as well for a couple of years now. Purely because of the frustration of trying to get these things to stick together. But if all it took was finding the glue that works, like this might not work with anything else, but it seems to work with the Corvus Belli metals for some reason. So yeah, I'm going to be building up the other Corvus Belli stuff. They sent me another couple of boxes as well. So they sent me out the new Diaphos Troubled Theft pack as well, which is like, I think basically what these mission packs are. I need to do a bit more digging into these really, but these mission packs are essentially a couple of minis for two different factions, and what they call like a high value sort of target type thing or something like that. And if you go onto the Corvus Belli website, you can also download like a special mission that basically goes with this stuff. And then I think basically at the moment, if you pre-order those two boxes, because these are not available yet, they're up for pre-order, you get this model as like a bonus purchase. I think this is the it says event exclusive edition, so I think this is the one for Gen Con, but it's has it got a name on it? Cassandra Kusanagi, or Kusanagi, is it? Kusanagi, I think it is. Pronounce that properly. But yeah, I mean, these models look fantastic. Like I say, I've always loved the Infinity stuff. These ones as well just look really, really nice. However, inside this box as well, which is another point of the conversation about Metal Minis, inside this box is a couple of CO cast models as well. And I've not built any CO cast models. I hear that they're a little bit like the cleanup makes them a little bit furry and stuff. So it's not as good as, say, like resin or plastic for cleaning up. But obviously a lot of the downsides of having to try to get metal to stick together and pinning them and all that kind of stuff is overcome by that as well. So we'll see how that goes. But that's kind of like my love-hate relationship is like, I have that nostalgia of the kind of the extra weight of the models and kind of sort of building them for Malifaux and having a great time, and I don't remember having any problems with like paint chipping off them or anything like that. But then just the frustration of the last few years of trying to get Infinity stuff to stick together, just getting it on my fingers. I've tried putting less glue on, because the more you put on, apparently the longer it takes to set. So I've tried putting less glue on, and then they don't really stick. I even bought an ultrasonic jewelry cleaner, and I would put all of the metal sort of components into the jewelry cleaner and give them a good clean and try and get any like release agent off them or anything like that to see if that was causing any problems. Just nothing seemed to work. But yeah, for whatever reason, and it was purely by chance, because I've had this glue before and never used it with Infinity stuff, but purely by chance of buying this set to get the accelerator for the super glue, I tried this glue and absolutely nails them together for some reason. So yeah, if you're having trouble with metal minis, maybe try this. It's by a company called Everbuild Miter Fast. Bonds miters in 10 seconds. Because when somebody told me to get this for the activator stuff, and I was thinking, well, it's for gluing wood together. Like, why am I using this for metal minis? But yep, it says it glues metal together, and I can vouch for it. It absolutely does. So yeah, give them a chance. Let's have a little look here. Cheese me says plastic for transport, metal for playing. Do you know what it is? It's not like there's something quite nice about plastic minis. Just the sheer. I don't think you have the fear of dropping them kind of thing in the same way that you do with metal ones. Like, you don't want to like chip them, do you? Or you don't want to drop them and like end up like breaking the tiles on the floor or something like that. Super Pokemon says, yeah, my pewter hive tyrant or old one would weigh enough to kill a man. Steve, good evening, Steve. How you doing? Says he picked up some hand sculpted models from Black Crab, and I love the character personality of all the hand sculpts. There's a lot of that is kind of like is lost a little bit now, I think, because everything is digitally sculpted now, which I fully understand. I mean, it's so much quicker than probably sculpting them by hand. But there is sometimes the character gets lost a little bit. Ed says, I'm really glad metal minis exist for those who like them. I can really do without painting any more of them, no. The painting doesn't bother me more, mate. It's like, I don't feel like painting a metal mini is any real different to painting a plastic mini, other than the weight on like a painting handle or something like that is sometimes a little bit annoying. Like the way I've got this like plastic model on this cork with some blue tack, like I certainly wouldn't be trying to do like a decent size metal model like that. But once it's primed, I don't really have that much difference. I wouldn't think, not that I've noticed anyway. Cheese Me says Metal Infinity models are so pretty, but they have such tiny details in places. You know what? I actually quite like tiny details on models, because I think if you're a bit of an average painter, it really leans into dry brushing. Like, rather than just having big flat areas, if you have a lot of detail, you can kind of like a dry brush and a wash really shows up well. Contrast paints really show up well on models with a lot of smaller details on them. So I'm not against that, actually. Super Pokemon says the absolute best reason I prefer plastic is the easy for me to customize the mini. Yeah, I guess if that's what you're into as well, I can understand that for plastic and maybe even resin as well. I'm not really someone that customizes minis. So for me, like I say, I'd happily take single piece plastics every day of the week, mate. It would save me a whole host of time having to build stuff. But the next best thing to me is then just having basically a single pose one, but something a bit more sort of dynamic, if you like. Cheese Me says, I also managed to break a tiny fragile knife of one of the nomads from my starter set. Yeah, when you're starting to kind of, because what I would say is the Corvus Belly metal is quite soft, actually, so you can take a scalpel blade and kind of like sort of slice away at it a little bit. It's not as kind of hard as some stuff I've used, but yeah, it seems to like, now I can get it stuck together. that's been the battle. It's like half of that. Cheese Me says DIY bits, they don't have the hobby tax. Yeah, I mean, like I say, somebody recommended this to us purely when I was talking about getting a spray activator, and if it hadn't been for buying it for that reason, I wouldn't have I wouldn't have tried the glue, really. Mutton Chop says just got mitre adhesive. It's a game changer. I don't know why it's a game changer, but it is. I can't believe, like, I knew it couldn't just be me. Like, every kind of glue I've tried, every different kind of glue, whether it's been gel glue or the runny stuff, or it's been Gorilla Glue, or it's been Evo stick stuff, whatever it's been, every different kind of super glue, I've had nothing but trouble. But for whatever reason it is, this is now like the king of the glues for me now. I'll only buy that from now on, especially the price as well. Zingbo says, I've never been able to finish any bottle of super glue that's as big as those Gorilla Glue bottles or larger. They always go solid long before they're approaching empty. Mine's always been generally alright, and I think one of the tricks, and this sounds counterintuitive, but it's not to fasten the lid too tight. Surprisingly, that seems to it stops the lids getting stuck on stuff. When I've bought these in the past, I've run out of the accelerator before I've run out of the glue, and generally what's happened is I've not been the most careful with them, and I've ended up getting like glue down the he says this one's starting to bubble out, getting glue down the kind of the side of the stem there. Let me just get some tissue and wipe that off. Getting glue down the side of the stem, and then it ends up getting stuck to the bottle top, and then what happens is it kind of snaps off and stuff like that, and it ends up being a bit of a pain in the backside. So that's what's kind of happened with mine in the past. But basically I've run out of this before I've used up this, and then I've had to buy another pack because it's cheap enough to do it. So then I get a new bottle of this with a new one of these kind of thing. But for whatever reason, I've never used this with the Corvus Belly stuff. But My God, I wish I had. What an absolute game changer, as Mutton Chops was saying there. You're saying about using only the little single-use tubes. The problem with that for me is that they're not cheaper. Like the single-use tubes are still relatively expensive as well in comparison. Steve says, anyone else have the issue where old super glue takes longer to set? I've had that once, mate. I've had it with a tube of Gorilla Glue, and I couldn't do anything, mate. I was going mad. I didn't understand what it was. I ended up just throwing it out and getting a new bottle, mate. But yeah, it has happened to me once before. Yeah, Cheese Me says, finding the right kind of glue appears to be the trick with metal and resin. Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this problem like many times, and nobody's recommended this stuff to me. People have said, oh, have you tried using activator? And I've said, like, basically what I find is if you spray because the joints for the Infinity stuff are quite small and they're very specific in their orientation, and you almost have to kind of like line them up first. So you want the glue to go off quick, so you're not sitting there for 20 minutes kind of thing, but you don't want it to go off too quick, where you basically, as soon as you kind of touch it on, it starts to go off. And what I've done in the past with the activator stuff is, what you're supposed to do is you spray activator on one half, glue on the other half. When you put the two together, the activator makes the glue go off, and it bonds instantly. But the problem when you do that is with the Infinity Minis is they don't, like, you have to almost kind of get them in the right orientation, otherwise the arm's in the wrong place or whatever. And they do have like almost, it's not a ball and socket joint, but that kind of thing, like a square wedge kind of thing that the arm would fit onto. But sometimes it just takes a little bit of fiddling to get it lined up, and I would find that it would go off too fast, and the arm wouldn't be in the right place. So what I'd found the best way to do it would be to put the glue on, fit the 2 points together, and then hold it in place and spray the model with the activator stuff. But because some of the points are just so small, it's such a fiddly thing to try and hold 2 bits and then spray the activator. So, which is the point I was making before about having 3 hands, somebody else to spray the activator on it. But this just seems to be working like a dream, mate. Mark Zelinsky, hello fella, how you doing? He said, I don't mind metal at all. You've maybe been using the right glue, mate, in that case. Zingbo says, I have a fondness for metal miniatures, but my experience with them are mostly from when they were rarely more than 2 or 3 parts each. Complex multi-part metal models sound like a nightmare. Yeah, I think that these, for example, these so in fact, let me open one of these packs up and I can kind of show you the kind of thing. I think this one is a metal model. So as you can kind of see, you have the main body for the model there, if that'll zoom, and then there's a little bag that has like all of the little, well, let's show up on there. I'm trying to get to it. I think the light, you can kind of see there's like 1, 2, 3 little bits in the bottom. Looks like a couple of guns or an arm with a sword. What's that bit? I think there's a leg, an arm with a sword, and an arm with a gun. If I can get them, they're kind of, yeah. But they're tiny little parts, kind of thing. So there's like 4 parts together for this one model, and I mean it's a beautiful model. As you can see from the box there, it's very dynamic, and that's why it's not a one-piece model. You know, it's not just like a flat thing in one direction, but. Yeah, and that's why it starts to get fiddly with those when the glue's not going off properly, and you're trying to get those bits lined up. It's just an act in frustration. But honestly, I couldn't believe what night and day it was with that glue. Let's have a little look here. Cheese Me saying maybe that stuff is meant for things not being too super clean like most super glues are. I think there's also an element of they've changed the kind of formula of super glue as well, so some of them don't smell as strong. Like for example, I don't think Gorilla Glue particularly smells that strong, but this stuff feels like it's old school. Like it feels like it's got the good stuff in it, kind of thing. I don't know what the difference is. I mean, it says it basically has it. Is it cyanoacrylate. I can't even read it from here. They both say they have the same stuff in, which is like the chemical formula for super glue. But yeah, maybe there's just a slightly different makeup in them. Yeah, Cheeseby saying, yeah, he can't even hold the bloody thing. Yeah, definitely an element of that mind sometimes. Tony saying, your story sounds so familiar. The difference is metal minis for you, airbrushes for me. It's unbelievable, mate, isn't it? I so wish I could just come and sit with you and show you how to use an airbrush. It would change your world, mate. It would change your world. Cheese Me says, metal washers are a great thing for adding weight to plastic models. I know a lot of like... especially like historical gamers and stuff use like 2p pieces for bases and things like that. I know like some people put like, especially in the what they call the Conquest minis, people put like 10p in the base because they're the right size to fit in the bottom, or they get metal washers and glue them in just to give them a little bit of extra weight as well. Dave says, had some Seocast shields on the SPQR Golds. Found they were trickier to stick to the hard plastic than metal would be. Yeah, it's weird, mate, isn't it? Like I think when you're trying to get two different kind of materials, like I know Mantic did a lot of like plastic minis with like metal upgrades or resin upgrades, or like for example, I think the Empire of Dust, before they went all plastic, were like plastic skeleton sprues with like metal Empire of Dust bits, and trying to get the two bits to stick together is a bit of a pain in the backside. August says, metal miniatures are the best. The heft is great, and using those old Mordheim miniatures is great for slap chop painting styles. I think any kind of mini which has lots of detail to them and lots of kind of texture is good for kind of dry brushing and washes and contrasts and things like that. That's the thing with plastics these days. A lot of them are a lot smoother really now than the old style stuff. Ed says, I had real problems with weight and chipping on old metal models. I painted for a couple of challenges last year. I must admit, I don't remember having any problems with models chipping. But then maybe I don't use them as much as you do. I know you do a lot more gaming than I probably do, mate. So maybe it's just a case of putting them in and out of boxes and putting them on the table and getting them knocked about a bit more. But like I say, I've probably not used them as much as you have. August saying, varnishing helps stop chipping a fair bit, but yeah, just store mine and foam carry case and they're all good. Yeah, I've always in the past had foam cases as well, which might have been different. Beauty saying that the better the detail in the minis, the better it makes your painting look, I think. No guesswork with areas that aren't clear. Yeah, I kind of agree, mate. Like, I know a lot of people are kind of put off by a lot of detail, but for me, it's almost counterintuitive, but sometimes when there's more detail, you don't have to paint as much, because like a dry brush, a wash, you can get away with like with areas of it being the same colour rather than having to pick out every little detail. But the depth with the shade or with the dry brush and stuff just highlights what everything is. So you can have a big chunk of it be brown, for example, with maybe a lighter cream dry brush on it, and it just makes all the bits stand out, so it looks like you've kind of spent a bit more time with it. But when there isn't a lot of detail, like it almost forces you to go in and paint detail into the model. Like things like faces and stuff, if there's a lot of kind of detail in the face, whether it be hair or headdress or something like that, you get away with a kind of a paint and a wash kind of thing, where when they're quite soft, you're having to try and go in and paint highlights on cheeks and paint the little bits on the chin and the top lip to try and show what things are. So yeah, I'm all for more detail. I'm all right with that. Explore Norfolk, good evening, mate. Says, I'm sorry I'm late, hope you're all well. I like both metal and plastic. Metal's for longevity of its life, plastic for the price to figure ratio and variety if I mess up a paint job on a metal. I'm not sure about the price wise, mate. I think plastics are fairly expensive these days as well, purely just because, you know, most companies who go to plastics have high setup costs, and then obviously GW are a massive company who have shareholders to pay. So I don't think there's much difference in the cost ratio so much these days. But and I'm not really sure about longevity really. I mean, plastic always kind of hangs around. I've got plastic models that I've had for years. So Or if I mess up a paint job on a metal, I can just do it again and again. If you talk like stripping them back and stuff, I suppose they're probably a bit more robust in that respect. Blizzards, hello to you, mate. He said he's back from his wound care appointment. Glad I can catch you a bit. Hope you're doing well, mate. I hope you're healing up quite nicely. Fernando says, I hate the process of building plastic minis. Taking the bits out of the sprues and so time consuming and a bit boring for me. I agree with you, mate. I find it quite boring as well, but then I find that even like metal minis take a lot more prep. So the time it takes me to cut off a few bits of plastic off a sprue and clean them up is still a lot faster than the preparation of taking off all of the little kind of vents off the plastics. Like I find Corvus Belly minis have a lot of little kind of sort of like the little vent port bits like all over the miniatures, and you've got to, like, even when you've sort of cleaned them up and stuck them together, I always find it's worth giving them a once over to double check them again. Mark says, can't wait to try this glue. Yeah, I couldn't believe it was fine, mate. Mutton Chop says, keep normal super glue in the fridge when not using. The wife won't be happy, but it keeps longer. Does it really mean? I always just put mine in a drawer kind of out the way. I guess it's out of sunlight and it's sort of cool in there as well, so that might be helping. Ken Trius says, found the Blood Bowl plastic minis too light. Someone told me to add milliput under the base, gives them a bit more heft. I prefer it, and it means they stay on the board a bit better. Yeah, I remember playing with guys who used to put bits of like milliput like squashed into the recess of a base. Dad4, hello mate, how you doing? He said, hello mate, only just tuning in, so what's your go-to metal paints, or do you use metal varnish? I don't use either, mate, if I'm honest. I don't paint a lot of metal minis in general, but I just use normal acrylic paints. I use sort of primer, like whether it be like a Halford's primer or something like that, like an auto primer. I've used GW primers, I've used Colourforge primers, I've used airbrush primers. As long as you can get a good kind of sort of coat on them, and I tend, with metal minis, the only thing I would say is I tend to let the primer sort of adhere and dry on the mini probably longer than I would normally do with like plastics and stuff. I tend to spray plastic ones, bring them in the house. Once the smell's gone, I'm kind of ready to start painting them. But with metal ones, I probably leave them like overnight. I maybe leave them 24 hours. But paint wise, I just use my GW paints, my acrylic paints, I've got my Duncan Rhodes ones there. I've got some TT Combat ones. I just use whatever I've got to hand, mate, to be fair. And varnish-wise, I don't often varnish my models, but I do have a spray can of Colourforge matte varnish that I sometimes use, just if I think something's going to get like a lot of kind of sort of handling and stuff. Like, for example, I've been painting up these God tier minis here, and these smaller ones, the little followers, they're quite small, so you're always going to be picking them up by the model, like rather than the base itself. You end up like handling the models a lot. So I must admit I have given those a bit of a coat of varnish, and I've also got some Vallejo matte varnish as well that I sometimes kind of hand paint on or airbrush on as well. Pusey says you could buy a job lot of those Everbuild glue sets and rebrand it as BlackJack Gaming Glue Scenics. I tell you what, man, there's other companies out there who do that kind of thing. But yeah, I know. I definitely bloody could. But I could probably double the price of these things and people would still buy it. Dice Hand Entertainment, good evening, mate. He says, what's the super glue and activator veteran Infinity hobbyist use? I don't know, mate. I've got no idea. But this is the stuff that I'm using now. Mitre Fast, mate. I bought this on Amazon. I should put a link up for it, and you can buy it through my affiliate link. But that's not why I'm showing it, because I haven't put a link up. But if it'll zoom, focus, come off my eyes there. Mitre Fast, it's called. I think it was £6. And you get the glue. They come together in like a shrink wrapped little packet thing, which is why that's all been ripped off there, because it was kind of glued to the side of the thing. But they come together. I think it was like £6, and it's the only thing I've found that sticks the Infinity miniatures together for me. I've never managed to use anything else and get them to stick together properly. I've even in the past had to put bits of tissue paper between the joints, which works great, mind, I must admit. But then you have to try and clean up the hardened bits of tissue that are kind of hanging out the joints, or you might end up like having to fill a few bits and stuff. Spot welding. BJGGS, Blackjack Gaming Glue. Well, I'll tell you what, mate, we might be onto a winner there. Tony Booth Leiden, mate, how the hell are you doing? Nice to see you, fella. He says, I like metal minis, mainly for the weight, but also there's some minis I can't imagine in anything else. Burrs and badges, for example. Yeah, I know what you mean, mate, yeah. Yeah, Cheese Me says, is it cyan or acrylate? That's the chemical name for super glue. That's what I was trying to pronounce, mate. But the bright lights off the ring light around my thing and the lights above shining in my eyes, and me trying to read tiny little letters on the side of this bottle. Not a good combination, but that's what I was trying to say. See you later, Big Dave. Thanks for coming in. Explore Norfolk says, top tip, clean your metal figures and components, then build them. You can also do a very thin layer of varnish over the metal with an airbrush and can give the primer a little extra help. I've tried cleaning them, mate, to be fair, and it made absolutely no difference. I was just saying before you came into the chat, I even bought an ultrasonic cleaner to clean them because I thought that was the problem, and it made no difference. This stuff I've been using stuck those models together without me cleaning them at all. It just went together straight away. Tony said, I do agree on the detail thing. Just figured painting a League of Votan mini that had lots of flat areas and not much in terms of detail. Lovely mini, but a lot more work to paint up. It suited me. It's nice if you want to sit and paint, mate. Like, it gives you like big flat areas are great for freehand. They're great for kind of doing nice blends. They're great for showing off like sort of subtle changes in colour and things. But for average painters, for mere mortals like me who just want to get stuff on a tabletop, but to a nice standard. For me, details like it basically just picks up the kind of the, what do you call it? It picks up the like dry brushes and washers and stuff like that. Doug Schumann, good evening, mate. How are you doing? He says, for single piece 25 to 28mm figures, metal works well. The CO cast is a good replacement, but making a mould for everything in someone like Reaper's back catalogue would probably never be converted. Yeah, absolutely, mate. I would agree. I'm not that familiar with the CO cast stuff at the minute. I mean, like, it feels like it's kind of it's something new. It's something a little bit different, but I don't know how big the take up is for it yet. And I'm not sure how big an advantage it is over like resin or metal really at this point. It might be significantly cheaper than resin than metal, to be fair. Metal minis weren't good for fantasy regiments, just too heavy for that. I would agree with that as well. And startup cost for a company to make metal minis is like 10k for a spin cast machine, where it's like 100k for a Siocast machine, and then just goes up from there in US dollars. Yeah, I mean, it's a funny one, isn't it? I guess companies who are buying these Siocast or Siocast machines, companies like Warlord Games in the UK or like Corvus Belli over in Spain, they're kind of well-established companies who've been making lots of miniatures. I mean, they're not making the amount of miniatures to invest in plastics for everything. Like, we're talking about Infinity stuff here. Like, this kind of stuff, people buy these once and then never buy them again. This is not like a troop of stuff where you're going to say, well, I'm going to have 4 units of them. Like, it's not the kind of thing that's mass produced in those terms. So it doesn't really make sense for those kind of things to be plastic. But I can see they're trying to come up with ways to make sort of all the benefits of plastic, but like without the costs, basically. But yeah, I can see that it's tough. It's like, there are very, very few companies who sell models on the scale that justifies their entire range being in plastic. So yeah. Doug saying, people using Siocast are trying to get away from the high cost of tin, which has raised prices of large metal minis. Yeah, I've heard this recently, that like the price of metal minis has gone up, and that's why I think the likes of Corvus Belli they're not changing the whole range, but they are replacing the kind of like the bigger models, the I forget what they're called in Infinity, but I think if like, for example, I think in this pack here, the big model at the back there, the one that looks a bit like a mech type thing, I think you can kind of maybe see it better on the side there, the one that's in the middle, That one is a CO cast model inside this pack, and the rest of them, I think, are all metal. James says he just painted for the first time this year. See Discord for a quick and dirty MCP Valkyrie. Let's have a look, mate. I'm going to have a little look. There we go. I like that, mate. Painting for the first time this year. Where's it coming? Come on, show me. Where is it? I want to see it. Where the hell's it gone? It was just there in my chat. There we go. Oh, it's still connecting. For some reason, it's lost its connection to Discord. Doug says I got interested. I'll wait and see when it connects. But yeah, it's I've been painting a little bit more this week. Like I say, I was busy painting up. I'm in the middle of doing the Fenrir for God tier. So that's the champion itself. I've actually finished painting all of the followers. I've done like a nice little snow base on these as well. I know you can't see them, but just to give you a little glimpse, you'll see the whole gang of them when I get all finished. It's because my phone's trying to connect to my lights, believe it or not. My studio light thing at the top here connect to my mobile phone on an app, so I can adjust them while I'm sitting here, and it's trying to connect here rather than actually to the internet. Dave Mackay, thank you for the cat watching me on TV, and looking good, mate. James Bray, I love it. Nice bit of work there, mate. I haven't painted any MCP stuff in a little while. What was I just going to say there? Something somebody said in the chat there. Expo Norfolk saying, did not know about a Discord. Is it free to join? No, mate, it comes with part of the Patreon. If you join the Patreon group, mate, you can join for $2 a month is the entry level into Patreon, and it gets you access to the BlackJack Legacy Discord group as well. So yeah, it's part of the perks of supporting the channel, mate. Oh yeah, James is just saying the thing. Doug says I got to look into the process of how minis are made at ReaperCon at the Reaper factory in Texas. The early SEOcast minis would create burrs when trying to remove the mold lines with a file. Yeah, we were just chatting about that earlier on. I've heard they kind of leave a bit of like a bit furry kind of thing as opposed to a nice smooth one. This new stuff that Corvus Belly are looking at the minute, this PVC resin mix stuff apparently seems to perform a lot better in that regard. But I've not had hands-on with them, so I couldn't tell you myself, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, James is saying he's happy with the blonde hair. It looks great, mate. It looks absolutely great. Tony's saying he's going to wait till the end of the stream. He can't do Discord and YouTube at the same time. What technology, mate? Technology. This is I guess this is the beauty of having multiple devices. I have got a PC running the stream. I've got my laptop here running the chat, and then I've got my phone here having a look at Discord. So yeah, I'm probably not the example of trying to sort of multitask, to be fair, on the same device. So yeah. Anyway, what else is happening? I'll tell you what's happening. Last week, I filmed about 4 videos, and you will see the first 2 of them tomorrow. So, I guess seems we're amongst friends. The numbers have dropped a little bit, so not everyone will get to see this. But let me reach across here. I was lucky enough to have the guys from Mantic come up to visit last week. 3 of them come to the studio to film some videos, and what we filmed was this. We filmed the gameplay video for Dungeon Saga Origins. So the 4 of us played Dungeon Saga Origins on camera. I've been frantically editing since last week and all over the weekend, getting these videos done to make sure that they go live prior to the Kickstarter. So we did a video of the gameplay. We did an interview video where we talked about kind of what do you get if you back the Kickstarter, what's involved. how's it going to work? What's the pledge level kind of thing? What do you get in the box? Why would you buy the Kickstarter version over the retail version? That kind of thing. And we then did another video about what's the differences. If you already own Dungeon Saga, why would you back the Dungeon Saga Origins Kickstarter? What's different between the two? And then we also did another video as well, just one for the channel about the future. Like Mantic, what's their plans for the next 6 months or so? And Ronnie revealed lots of cool stuff. So that one will be coming a little bit further down the line. But yeah, James is saying, is this going up on your channel or the Mantic official one? It's going up on my channel, mate. So the gameplay and the interview will go up tomorrow at lunchtime. And I think Mantic are going to be sharing something out, maybe like later in the day, like a blog post or something like that, just to kind of make people aware of it. But yeah, it's gonna be up tomorrow. So yeah, I must admit I didn't know a lot about Dungeon Saga Origins prior to getting to play it last week, but I had a good time with it. So no doubt hopefully you'll enjoy it too. James is saying, oh man, Dungeon Saga. Tony said, liking the look of Dungeon Saga Origins. And Mark says, yeah, looking forward to it. So yeah, tomorrow's gameplay video will be the first time anybody gets to see kind of how the game actually plays. And rather than just kind of like having a couple of people playing it, there was myself, there was Ronnie, there was Dan, who's the new guy who's just started with Mantic about a month ago, and there was Johnny as well. So the four of us got to play that together. Jess says, that's odd. Ronnie's normally very tight-lipped. Yeah. Ronnie basically just, like, when the cameras were off, he pretty much just kind of spilled his guts about what their plans were. So I can't talk about most of the stuff that he told me about. There is some exciting stuff coming later in the year, but he did talk on camera about probably the next 6 months or so, maybe just beyond the summer, maybe. So yeah, there's some interesting stuff to come out. Tony says, was Ronnie supposed to be revealing loads of cool stuff, or was he getting over enthusiastic? He was supposed to be revealing some cool stuff when we did the chat on camera, but it was when we turned the cameras off and he basically just went, oh, and this and this and this and this, and you could see Dan and Johnny's face were like, oh, I thought it's meant to be a secret. So yes, he did spill his guts. Let's have a little look here. Where are we up to here? Let's have a little look on this. It looks like it's I'm having a bit of a mare at the minute. Hopefully your stream hasn't stopped. For some reason both of mine did for some reason, but we'll hopefully that's working all right. Let's have a little look here. Everyone's saying looking forward to Dungeon Saga. Doug says, too bad we can't get you to spill your guts. No, I'm sworn to secrecy, mate. I'm not saying anything, but yeah, he told me plenty of stuff. Jez says, did you enjoy Dungeon Saga? You'll have to watch the video, mate, tomorrow and see if I enjoyed it. Dave says, did you have a hat you could swipe? He didn't, mate, no, but he did lose his keys. VJ says, that's one of the reasons I was disappointed. I didn't meet Ronnie when I was at Mantic. No inside scoop. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what was going on with the stream, mate. It seemed to just have a bit of a wobble. I just refreshed it, mate, and it seems to have gone on again. So hopefully it wasn't too bad. And yeah, everyone's saying that the stream stopped. Northern Realms, hello Daryl, mate. How are you doing? Nice to see you in the chat. I'm assuming by this point everybody should have the stream back there now, isn't it? Yeah, they're saying yeah, died for me to moment. Yeah, I've reset it and it's been ticking away fine there for some reason. It just decided to give up the ghost a bit. But yeah, so editing wise, we filmed them on Tuesday. I was editing all day Wednesday, all day Thursday. I had Friday off. I was a bit hungover Saturday. I edited all day Sunday, and I've edited all day today, and I'll be doing the same again tomorrow as well to make sure, because the gameplay videos are like it's like an hour long. It's one of those things where there was lots of editing to do. I had a few sound issues I had to try and sort out as well, because Ronnie gets a bit excited. So one thing I've learned from doing this video with a gameplay video with Ronnie is that when you set the audio levels for your microphones and you say, Ronnie, can you give me some audio so I can set the levels? So he'll talk and he'll kind of say, yeah, like, well, I had breakfast today and blah blah. So I'll set the audio levels, and then as soon as you start recording, he goes, hello. And all my sounds had gone out the window by this point. So I had a little bit of work to do with the audio when I come to edit the video. So there was a bit of work to do on that, and it's hard work when you like. I was basically during the game, I'm operating 1, 2, 3, 4 cameras. I'm trying to be entertaining. I'm trying to play the game. I played the part of the dungeon overlord as well, so I was running the game, so I was having to keep an eye on the map and kind of like, you know, like when if they walk around this corner, can any monsters see them and stuff like that. So there was a lot going on. So my brain was fried when I finished it. Weird. It seems like it's streaming all right from my side, folks. I know folks are getting a little bit. Yeah, it seems like it's so from what I can see on my screen there, that shows me what's going out, and that's not freezing or anything like that. I don't know. So I don't know if it was just an issue with that. What did you miss? We've been chatting about my love-hate relationship with Metal Miniatures, mate, but we were talking about other stuff that's been coming in as well. Clyde saying, okay, that means the rest of you need to be backers and we'll all meet up on Discord. Peter Dickinson says, is there not some deal with Siocast being proprietary? The company rents the machine from the manufacturer, so they don't own the process. I think there's also an element as well, is that there's something like, I think if you buy the machine or you rent the machine, you're tied into buying their material as well, I believe. Like their resin pellet, like plastic pellet stuff, you're tied into buying the raw material from them as well, I think, which is another one of those things. Darrell said he wasn't a fan of Siocast. I've never worked with it, mate. I've never built any models. I've never seen any models from Siocast really. I was just saying I've got some Infinity stuff here, and one of the models inside the pack is Siocast, so that'll be the first one I get to see really. It wasn't much fun to use in the Batman core box. So were they Siocast stuff from Night Models? I didn't realise that they'd started using them as well. I know there was they've always had like a bit of a weird resin material, but I hadn't realised they had some Siocast stuff. Let's have a little look here. Yeah, I must admit, folks, I had to kind of press refresh to get it working again. So I think maybe some of you might have to do the same thing as well. That was just saying we recently had a conversation about how lovely old Infinity models were to put together. Do you know what it is, mate? I've solved my problem, and I've literally found this glue. This is what I was talking about tonight, and this glue sticks Infinity models together like shit to a blanket, as the phrase goes. I couldn't believe that this is what I've missed all my life. So I've literally gone through and I've stuck together all of the minis in this Operation Blackwind set that I'd essentially written off and said, screw them, I'm not going to stick them together because it won't stick. I'm having a pain in the backside. So yeah, this stuff, mate, shit to a blanket, that's what it should be called. Just as if Siocast and Warlord resin is the same, I found it's okay in the Slain box. It is the same, mate. For some reason, Warlord don't want to use the name Siocast or Siocast, whatever the hell it's called. They want to just call it Warlord resin, but essentially that's what it is. They're using Siocast machines. Clyde says, I need to find this glue. I'll put a link up, mate, somewhere for it. Tony says, I don't mind metal, but I don't mind most things as long as it's the right medium for the right kind of mini. PVC for terrain crate, for example, is a good move. PVC for minis is bad. I think it depends on the kind of PVC minis that it is, mate, because like these God tier minis are kind of like PVC board gaming plastic, and these have like loads of detail, and they're not like the horrible bendy stuff. They also don't need cleaning up as well, so I haven't been like fanning on with them kind of things. Darcy, have you decided on Steel Phalanx or Hacker Slam? To be honest, mate, I haven't got a clue. I'll probably end up painting them all up. I've got the other starter box as well, the Operation Coldstrom one, and I've already painted up all of those, which I think is Yujing and Panoceania. So I've already painted all of those ones, mate. So I do have a painted set of each of those, and I've got a few more Pano models as well. I must admit, man, I do like these Bakunin. These new Bakunin ones, they're kind of like what they call the Observerance of St. Mary of the Knife. Is a religious organisation with a proactive and belligerent attitude against Aleph. Well, there you go, mate. A key element in the Bakunin jurisdictional command. That's a mouthful as well, isn't it? It forms part of the Quantronic and Tactical Intervention Teams. It's like something that's been weirdly translated, but yeah, it's yeah, they look nice, mate. I must admit they look really cool. Whoops, and yeah, I'll be building them up now. I've got glue that sticks. Says yes, the mighty Yuxing. No way. Yeah, you've got them. Yeah, they sent me an email about a week or two ago, mate, saying we'd like to send you some out. We're doing, this is our new thing. They also sent me the Diaphos mission pack as well, and the Cassandra Kusanagi box as well. So yes, nice little set of bits and pieces. So I've got something to build, mate, while I'm waiting for my Conquest minis. Cassie K, that's the one. Yeah, so, but like I say, when I knew they were on their way, I thought, you know what it is, I'm going to go back, I'm going to finish off this Blackwind box. I'm going to try and like sort of get over my annoyance of trying to build models. So what I did was I'd ordered some of this Mitre Fast spray stuff, the activator, which comes with the glue, and I thought I'll try this then in that case. Glued first time, no problem at all. Clyde says, because of Alex 52 Miniatures, I really want to try Infinity with some oil paints for a try outside of my wheelhouse. Lots of detail on them, mate. I think the oil paints would really show up nice on them, actually. Peter Dickinson says, I've just found spots of blood on the balsa wood Bretonian chapel I'm making, but can't find a cut on my hand. Is my house haunted? Have you tried wiping your nose, mate? Are you having a nosebleed? It could be that, buddy. Or maybe it's just blood, sweat and tears of trying to put them together, mate. Maybe that's what it is. So, folks, I think that is as good a place as any to start to wrap that up, I think. Because it's been a hell of a long day. I've been sitting editing since 7:30 this morning. And I stopped editing about 7 o'clock tonight. And then what I had to do was I then had to go into the garage and take all of my recording equipment out of there and set it all up in here. So I've stopped for about half an hour all day to have my dinner tonight, and now I'm very, very tired. So I'm going to have a good night's sleep. But yeah, watch out tomorrow, lunchtime, UK time. There'll be 2 videos going up. There'll be the playthrough or the gameplay video of how to play Dungeon Saga Origins, and there will also be an interview as well with Ronnie and the Mantic guys talking about Dungeon Saga Origins and why you should back the game, what's it all about, who's it kind of designed for, what's the future plans for Dungeon Saga Origins. And why you should back the Kickstarter rather than waiting for retail. So, yes, Justin, if you need an escape and a cuppa, give me a shout. I will do, dude, mate. I will do, because once I get all this editing finished, I've still got loads of stuff to do. I will definitely be wanting to take a little bit of a break because it's been pretty much nose to the grindstone. Mantic asked me about doing these videos, and it was like, but the Kickstarter goes live in 2 weeks, so is there any chance we can squeeze it in? And it's like, oh, Jesus, this is going to be tight. I'm also getting a new boiler fitted on Wednesday as well, so I think the heating's going to be off for a day or so while we get the new boiler fitted, so I'm going to be wrapped up and sitting editing again as well, I think. Nice to see everyone in the chat tonight. Thank you very, very much to all of the Patreons as well, as always. And thank you to everybody who subscribes to the channel. If you haven't subscribed, please click subscribe. It's always nice to get new subscribers. It makes me feel loved. So take care, everyone. Please do watch the new videos, and I will see you on next Monday's chat. Bye for now.